I'm waiting on you.
Let's see, and okay. So hello everybody. My name is Sam, and I work for YottaDB in various capacities. But one of the main things is, I work on uh, various user interfaces and work on support for our VistA clients. What I'm going to be talking about here is the YottaDB GUI. So you may remember I talked about the YottaDB GUI last time, if you attended my presentation last year. But this is the third time I'm presenting. Well, this is gonna be our third attempt at the YottaDB GUI, and we're definitely hoping it's gonna stick this time. This is our marketing slide. Somebody needs to go on mute. I'm not sure who's that.
I can't figure out who it is. Can everybody mute if you're not talking? No, we're still getting
There's
it.
a button that says mute all.
I'll
hit that. I'll hit that.
Wait a minute.
And then you could
the moment it got
unmute
quiet.
yourself.
Sam, can you start describing what you're looking at here?
I am I am trying to. Okay, so this is just a architecture of YottaDB. This is a diagram we have, one of the canned diagrams we have, which describes how YottaDB works and what's our vision for it. Basically, the stuff we have, the stuff that's in kind of red orange is. Red orange stuff is the M language stuff, and the stuff that's purple is additional languages, including C and what's on top of C. Okay, so this is a repeat slide, but it's as applicable as ever. Why do we need a GUI? It's not so much a big issue now for the users in the VistA community, because they have been around VistA and GTM and YottaDB for a long time, so they already know some of these issues. But why a GUI? Well, we have our big problem, and even internally. I mean, we have this problem internally as well as developers. We know exactly, like if you put -key or -rec, I actually do know which one it is, but problem is you never know. We have some weirdnesses in the syntax where sometimes we want an equal sign here, sometimes we want a value without an equal sign, and then the problem is you update a database, you don't update its original definition file, and then we have a legacy thing in GDE where we have various settings scattered across two different sections. One section could be the region section, another could be the segment section. So this is all kind of really confusing, and it usually means you have to open up the manual and keep looking for the thing that you want to change. And this applies to a lot of stuff. And another thing that we did is we tried to make it, one of the most critical problems we usually face with our database is there are actually usually two issues, but we dealt with one, not the other one yet. We dealt with the issue of having free space. The other issue usually is data integrity issue. We have two other major issues: data integrity issues, and then replication status. We partially dealt with replication status. We don't have full replication support yet. I'll get to that later. And we are kind of working on data integrity stuff. So Yep, so that's why we need a GUI. It's, you know, a lot of different operations in the database that are kind of unintuitive to make. So as far as our history goes with our GUIs, this is our third iteration of a GUI. Christopher Edwards worked on a prototype, and then we had a developer who came in kind of out of the blue, and he also disappeared into the blue very soon. He did a second prototype, but we were trying to. The first one was definitely very much a prototype, so there was a lot. This first one was showing what could be done, and that was all its intended purpose. The second one, we're thinking of trying to support it long term, but the problem was we were both stacks for the first and the second were NPM based, and what happens with the Node ecosystem is that things move so quickly, and usually things don't get updated and they get left behind. And I was eventually spending so much time trying to address security vulnerabilities that were reported by our scanners, and we eventually figured out that there was no way to update them anymore, because there was it's basically people were not updating them, and they were telling you, oh, you need to rewrite your application, and by the way, the rewrite is going to require you to change. I mean, you need to upgrade your application, and by the way, your upgrade will require a good size rewrite of various controls. And the first GUI at this point actually stopped running because the Vue version became too old and it was not supported anymore. So this kind of made us very hesitant to use NPM to manage dependencies. We still use it a little bit, and I'll get to it in maybe the next slide. So anyways, so here it is. So we kind of learned that we will not use NPM, not for production stuff. We use it for testing. We use something called Puppeteer, which basically runs a Chrome web browser, and actually kind of a silent Chrome web browser that doesn't show on the screen, and it does various things. And we use NPM for that. We kind of limit our packages to what we need to that. And as far as our dependencies, we kept them to an absolute minimum. And for JavaScript, we have no build steps whatsoever. That was another problem with our other stacks, is that they use NPM build steps that were too difficult to use. And actually they don't work after a while if you don't keep maintaining them. The other thing that we learned from our last two attempts was we needed to focus on the functionality that user wanted. And I have to thank, he's here, Yazid kind of helped me with identifying like some of the core stuff that end users actually want from a kind of an administration point of view for GTM and YottaDB. So that's pretty much, and thank you, Yazid. All right, so this is what our first incarnation looked like, and it pretty much only had a GDE editor, and it had one that kind of really just mirrored our GDE roll and scroll, which if you're familiar with it, you'll see that some of this looks familiar. Our second incarnation looked like this, and it was very good on the graphics. But again, GDE was basically another incarnation of kind of the same idea, just kind of copying the interface we had. It had a routine viewer, and it had a global viewer, and it had a small interface to look at octo tables. So then our problems with this is, the routine and globals are, they're useful, but the globals was not that useful. And routines was pretty good, but the GDE is, again, that most of our users, our current users actually, and where we're targeting the GUI is they need to use it for administration. And setting up a GDE is good, but that's a lot of, it might help you initially, but it doesn't help you administer the database after that. So with that, we did a third incarnation, and that's what it looks like. Oh, I was wondering why there's a cursor here. This is what it looks like, and it's far more focused now on an administrative view of YottaDB. So it kind of gives you an idea of where things are exactly, and then you manage them. And this time, we focused on completely removing completely removing the stuff that GDE does in the background, and giving it like a logical view for the end user, so they don't have, so it would appear logical to them, and so that they would know how things work. So this, or at least be easier to understand and how it works. And we definitely try to reduce the options as much as possible and hide everything behind the flag that says show advanced parameters. And this is a screenshot of you editing a specific value. And this is a screenshot of editing the names map to a region. And this is a screenshot of system information, a screenshot of locks, this is a screenshot of extending a database. And so what are we currently, what we have done so far is system information. We have done that one is a bit hard, unfortunately, and we still need to work on it. But view, create, edit, and delete regions and databases are done. We do have we do have a small issue where we need to update GDE post update per user input, and we still haven't done that. And so that's we're working on speccing this out and having it ready in a future release. We have extend database, we have start and stop journaling, we have lock management, and what we're currently working on is tabbed global viewing, which I've seen the prototypes, they look really nice, but I'm not showing them today.
Sam, could you back up and show a little more detail about the lock management?
I will be doing a demo in a second, so you can ask me the questions there. Okay, I'll focus on the lock management. I'll do that first just to show you. Okay, so our planned features after this, globals are done and we're done with routine, we're done with fixing the GDE stuff, is the following. We want to do routine viewing, want to administer trigger definitions, want to do backup and restore, want to do integrity check, want to do defrag, which is the mupa pre-org command, and replication administration. Obviously, I don't know if we're going to do them in that order, but probably replication administration is kind of important, so we might prioritize it because that's one of our pain points for our users. Okay, so I'll do a demo, and here let's give me 1 second. I need to stop sharing. Where did Firefox go? Oh, here it is. Sorry. Okay, here it is. This is what it looks like. Does everybody see this?
I'm seeing
Okay,
it.
good, good. All right, anyways, you at this point, what we have built out is you turn on you install this, which is basically the installation is a straight make install, and it gets it installed, and then you have to put the files that do the server in your routine directory, and you start it, and that's pretty much it. It's not that hard to start. This is what it looks like. It gives you one of the most important and coolest features, I think, is like you get a very quick idea of how much storage space you have. So here it says I'm using 29% of my storage right off the bat, and it does it by storage device. So if you have your journals, like we usually recommend, on a separate disk controller, because if your disk controller fails, you don't want to lose both your database files and journals. So you'll have your journals available. It will show two different tabs here for different types of for different devices. You click the plus sign, it gives you more detail on what you're seeing in terms of blocks and in terms of gigabytes. Over here, we spent a lot of effort making sure that we have good counters to tell you whether the database is healthy or it needs attention, and also same thing here for journaling, and also for replication. But replication isn't very spec'd out right now. It does very basic checks right now. Down here, we have the ability to look at a region as a view only. So let's say you look at the temp region for this database. So you could see like, oh, it says I'm using 14% of the database allocated to me, and it gives you the various parameters for the file and the database access, and journaling, the names that are actually mapped, the statistics, and the locks. Now, which reminds me, I need to talk about locks because David was interested in that. So let's go ahead. So we have something called the mlock manager, and here it is. And this, you can expand this and you get an idea. It gives you some information about which region the lock belongs to, what PID, and if you do this, it will tell you who's the user ID and the process name. On each lock, you can either terminate the lock owner, which is you terminate the process, or you clear the lock. And we have two other views. It's by region and by process as well. So question, David, you had a question for me?
Yeah, my question mostly is locks are one of the things that if you've been in a VA very long, you learn that locks are one of the things that you just got to constantly be paying attention to.
Absolutely.
So for example, what you're seeing there is you're seeing that Taskman has got a scheduling global, %ZTSCH. First subscript is task, and then the next number is the number of the task.
Yep.
That's not the number of the process, that's the number of the task. So if you click on that, you'll see that the process ID is different.
That's correct. It's 79. It's not 1015.
Right. So trying to find for a I don't know if you're going to do some kind of task management type stuff. I guess that tends to be very application specific. But at least you have plans to provide some kind of searching on these locks so that you can find all the, similar to what you do with %G or some kind of wildcard to find the names that include, I don't know, 783, because that's the patient number, and find out the locks that are tied to it. You know, when you've got a system where it's gone crazy, one of the reasons it's gone crazy is using a lot of CPU, and you need to find out which task is using all the CPU. But you also have cases where one person or one process wants access to the lock, and the other processes are actually using the lock. And I was just wondering how successful you could use this tool to try to resolve some of those issues that happen. Do you have a way to say for a lock so that you can find out which lock is in high contingency, high a high amount of interest by the programs, or things like that.
So these are all wonderful questions, and I'm afraid I don't have satisfactory answers. So obviously this is our first like GUI that we attempted for this kind of process, and it didn't really have extensive user feedback yet. So that's good user feedback saying that we need a search for the locks.
When there's 5, nothing, but when it's 1,000, it becomes really difficult.
Yeah. And so that, yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
I was just
actually,
going to say for
Dave, Dave and Sam, I'm actually taking notes, so I will actually create an issue in GitLab so that some ability to filter the locks that are being displayed. So I'll
okay,
that.
Good. Thank you, Bhaskar. I was taking notes as well, but I was gonna do that eventually. Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
So Sam, you said terminate the lock owner. For a dummy like me, to me, you would be disconnecting the user or something, but you're only terminating the lock process.
I kind of argued with internally on we should call this terminate process, but I got overridden. So I personally would have preferred it to say terminate process because that's much clearer to the user.
Or how about terminate lock process owner or lock owner lock process? I don't know. To me,
I think we can let's just say reword is what we want to say. Reword terminate lock owner because that's not clear at all. I agree with you.
The thing is, your people inside are too smart.
Well,
they have to understand us GUI users.
I keep telling people I'm the resident blonde. So, anyways.
The other question I wanted to ask was going back to the space available. Is that the space on the machine, or is that space allocated to the database?
That's a great question. Okay, so I see there are many questions, but I'm taking one. So this space over here, this space has to do with the space on the machine. That's the actual file system. This is when you type df-h, that's what you get.
Right.
df-h. In here, when we look here, when it says use space is 99%, this is actually the space that's being used in the database file. So this file is 99% full. And in order for me to actually get more space, what I have to do is click extend database file and put a reasonable size number of zeros here and hit extend.
So I thought there was a way.
And now you could see it got extended.
Now, can you set up? I thought you could set up a way so that it would automatically extend when it got full. Is that true or not?
That's our default. And that's why it was green, actually. It's green because it's not a danger condition. What I can do is now I've not tried this for the demo, but I'm doing it. Could click here, and I can go to show advanced parameters, extension count, change that to 0. Now go ahead, hit edit. And now it says was 124 will be 0. Hit save. Now if I go back to default, notice that the color now changed because we're in a danger zone, because it's not going to automatically extend anymore if it hits the top.
Good, thank you.
Because I changed the extension count to 0.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Yazid had a question. Yazid, can you speak up?
Hello, Sam. Thank you for your efforts building this useful tool. But I have a question. Some of database action, like changing a journaling database, and you want to change a DSE values or change a journaling state, required a rundown database. So.
Yep, that's correct. So let me show you what happens. So this is your question is regarding something like this, changing a global buffer count. So what we did is that we put a little red eye on there that says single user mode is required to alter the value on the current database. So let's double this. 819, I can't count. What's 4096? You multiply 8 pairs, that is 8192. Okay. And so now you hit edit, and it's going to tell you this operation requires standalone access.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm glad so in that case, you're going to have to figure out how to actually terminate the processes and then to make that change. But the only we've actually tested manually all of these, and we found that the only one that actually affects the current database that you could change is the extension count. That's it. Everything else that actually affects the currently database running file, you actually need to change in standalone mode.
Okay. But there is no option to shut down the database from this great GUI, right?
No, there isn't, because if we were writing something just for VistA, that may make sense, but the problem is VistA code to shut VistA database is very VistA specific, and I wrote that code somewhere in the ZSY code base, so which it runs XUS clean. The thing is, it's every database is kind of specific on what kind of things it needs to do to clean up. So we can't write that code. We have to ask the users to do it because everyone is different.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It makes sense to ask about a plugin architecture for this, so that we can add to the things that we need to have specific database specific stuff, like translating the process number into a patient a username to display in Lock Manager, or shutting down the system for you see what I'm saying? Yes.
So so a lot of this a lot of the way that this works is that it kind of loads modules on the fly. So I imagine a plugin architecture is possible, and our main developer actually has been thinking that way. But our focus has been, it's if somebody funds us to do a specific plugin for a specific application, we'll do it.
Yeah, let me just jump into that one. So I've been taking notes, but for anyone who's using this, please, after the meeting or any time, we're 100% open source company, and all of our software is 100% open source. You can just create an issue at any time, and we'll respond to it.
Could I ask a question?
Yes. Can I just, Matt, before you go, I want to answer Raphael's question. He posted something on chat.
Sure.
Raphael asked, is this going to be available by default in the Docker image? And I believe my next slide, which I was going to go to, tells you the actual Docker image. It is available by default in our Docker image, and you can download it nightly. So it's in the Vihu Docker image, not our default Docker image yet. So I think that maybe Raphael, that's what he's talking about. It's not our default Docker image, although that does make me think that we should probably have it in the default. Oh, okay. No, it's not in the base image yet. So I'm sure Bhaskar is making a note to put that in there as well. Okay, Matt, your question.
Yeah, so it seems to me that, hang on a second. It seems to me that, do we use scripts to shut down VistA? And it seems like we could if we didn't. Would it be possible just to require a script if you were going to shut down the database? Could you just require a script to be run and come back, one that it ran, and then go ahead and maybe that's the same thing as a plugin. I don't know, but
yeah, it's an idea. It's an idea. No, not exactly the same, but so yeah.
I mean, that would make it a lot easier for you on your end. You just say, go out, run this script, and they have to supply the script. And
yeah.
then it comes back one, and you say, okay, now it's time to run it down.
Yeah, the thing is that these operations are a lot of them are quite dangerous to do on like a production system. Like you really need to know what you're doing. And so part of me hesitates for making it too easy. We kind of want to expose the functionality to users. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I think I want to see what we can do to make it easier to run. And yeah, so I'm sure Bhaskar is listening, and we're gonna try to come up with ideas on how to do this.
Thanks.
So let's see. I'm trying to see how I could get the chat here. Oh, here it is. I'm gonna try to let me see the next questions. So David Wixell said you could add a rundown hook that could use user code. That's exactly what you suggested, basically, Matt. David was suggesting the same thing, which is add a specific script that could be a hook that the YDB GUI could use. So that's good. There's the same idea coming from different people. Arthur is asking, does it support M1 Apple? We do not, Arthur. We do not support Mac OS as an operating system. However, we support any Linux running on ARM chips. That means that you can run a Docker image of YottaDB. We do have a little issue right now. We cannot generate Docker images for ARM from our x86 hardware because the software that Docker uses to do that, I was just doing this investigation last week, has a problem with how it mounts things, and it caused a problem for our YottaDB compilation, which I reported to the Docker project. But I do already have an ARM64 image for OctoVista that does include this GUI, and if you run it on an Apple machine, it will work.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yep. So, Raphael, would it be useful to add a web console to provide the CLI access via web browser as well? I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm not sure. I think we're trying to provide, our presumption in this is that the users already have access to the terminal and they're gonna fire this up, because that's the only way you get to this, is you have to fire up a terminal, and once you turn it on, then you could go in. So that's where that is. So there may be time in the future where we would actually find it useful, but at this point, I don't think that that's kind of in the idea of the product, because most of our users already have access to the terminal. Okay. Oh, that's what Raphael and Bhaskar mentioned. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Looks good. So I want to see how many more slides I have, and if I have a longer time, because I think I only have 7 minutes left. Let me see if I have more slides. Oh yeah, I do. So I'll go to the slides, and if there's time to do more of the demo, I will do more. But for now, I only have a few minutes left. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to fiddle with GoToMeeting and start the
Hey,
screen.
Sam?
Yep, I hear you.
Yasmid Smadi has his hand up. I was wondering if that was old
Oh,
news.
okay. He can go up. He can speak up. Sorry, go ahead.
He answered my question. I forget to retrieve it.
Oh, okay,
okay, very good. I
good.
just want to make sure we get it covered.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this the right screen? Stop screen sharing. I thought no. Did I have a presentation? Hold on.
Seeing Rob.
I'm gonna figure it out. Okay, here we go. So, all right, do you guys see this? Okay.
Yes.
Go
So
on mute again.
I think you guys will be stunned, but these are our dependencies. That is it. There is nothing else. Now, if you know anything about the usual NPM application, it usually has a few thousand dependencies. We don't have a few thousand. We have 5. That's it. That's all we use. On the back end, it uses the M web server, but which is very I'm actually taking a lot of code out from the M web server and making it YottaDB only, and it's really very bare down web server. So the file resources are pretty much served unchanged. The web services are served by API endpoints. And I mentioned, if you want, you can try this on for yourself, and it's Docker run Docker run -dp, etc. And you run the latest master. This gets built every night. So if we merge in a new feature, you can download this again, and excuse me, and you're going to get the latest source code. And in order to install it, you clone the repo and you run these commands in order: cmake ..make, and you don't need the -e. I don't know why I have that, right? Sudo make install. And then you just add plugin/o, and I forgot the other slash. Sorry, there's a typo there. Slash this SO and this to your YDB routines. And there's a, if you're using UTF, no, this is a VistA community. Don't use UTF-8, never mind. And then you run it with -- port and a number, and then you access it. And that's how you do it. That's, I mean, as far as installation, pretty easy. So that's pretty much it. And let me see, I have 4 minutes, so I'm gonna stop now. I'm not gonna do more.